Hi, I am Eriksson. So here we are in South Africa. We're in Cape Town, not too far away from waterfront. And we're at the gallery here, Everard Read, to hear about African art. And we're here to meet Emma Van Der Merwe, and she will tell us more about the South African and African contemporary art scene. If you were to explain for somebody that's never ever seen artwork from Africa or South Africa, what would you say?
I would start by saying that we have an exceptionally high standard of art in this country. There is a lot of artists that work here that's work is represented internationally, and for anybody looking for a variety and a very experimental and jubilant style of artist, this is the right continent to come visit.
If you were to pinpoint what is so special about the African art compared to other international art, what would you say?
In practical terms, I would start by saying the price point. So obviously we have a few very well-known international artists who are represented by leading galleries around the world. The most obvious ones, Marlene Dumas, Kendrick, and then recently Zanele Mahole. But we have a lot of artists in this country whose work is just as critically important and just as well sort of conceptualized and manufactured as many artists of the same generation abroad.
If we look on the African artists, where do you think they find their inspiration to create their own universe or their own language?
There are so many different breadths and depths of field on this continent. In South Africa, obviously, a lot of the narratives are steeped in politics, social commentary, feminism, the history of apartheid. There's definitely a very strong current and thread of acknowledging and dissecting the powers that have come and the powers that currently exist. Having said that though, a lot of artists do investigate more universal themes. You know, depending on what kind of material it is, we have artists working in bronze and sculptural forms. We have artists painting, performing, doing video, artists that work in more craft-based materials. Everyone seems to be investigating both sort of traditional voices and narratives, but also pushing the boundaries of what art can be.
Design is an inventive tool to solve everyday problem. Whereas art deals with the big questions of life. How do you think that the African artists are approaching that idea of the big questions of life?
That's a very good question, Piers. And I have to say that a lot of important and difficult questions are asked by South African artists at present, whether it be questions about sexuality and gender identity, or questions about the political powers that be, and challenging that hierarchy and nepotism, all the way through to kind of considering what constitutes a visual artist, who's entitled to make artwork.
We're standing in front of a fantastic piece of art here that deals a lot with what you are talking about. Could you explain a little bit?
Yes, with absolute pleasure. So this is an artwork produced this year by Blessing Negombeni. It's called Taught to Corrupt, Not to Hunt. It's really actually an exceptional example of Blessing's kind of working practice. So first of all, you have the mixed media-based work on a canvas. We prefer not to stretch the surfaces because they are often uneven. You've got that mixture of collage, reference to social media, reference obviously to certain sort of animals and human forms. The work is always exceptionally demanding and challenging, but what's also very exciting about Blessing's work is you're not just dealing with relevant current sort of considerations about politics or social commentary, about corruption or lawlessness that he sees around him every day, but he also makes historical references. Now, Blessing's a fantastic example of an artist who's going from strength to strength. He just a couple of months ago was awarded the Standard Bank Young Artist Award, which in this country is the most prestigious art award for young artists.
If you were to give some other example, who would you choose?
Well, there's a real breadth of artists in this country. Some artists are perhaps more commercially known than they are for their politics.
So Emma, we got a magnificent painting here with a head of an African girl, it looks like.
Yes.
Who is the artist?
This is Lionel Schmitt, who needs very little introduction. Lionel is one of the most well-known South African artists commercially. He's been showing in America, Australia, Europe, Asia, and this is an exquisite example, about a decade old.
Who is this artist that we have here then?
This is a critically stand-on-her-own artist called Toria Magaqa, who's most well known for her installation-based works and paintings in cotton and nylon stocking. Toria has been groundbreaking in terms of bringing the feminine identity to the forefront of conversations on the African continent. Her work deals with feminism, with violence against women, and also the female identity, redefining it on their own terms. This is a Philemon Hlongwane, who is Johannesburg based and trained originally as a printmaker. But what is so exemplary about this artist's narrative is the entire body of works exists as a celebration for women in this country. And more importantly for him, the women of his village, where he grew up, in the northern Transkei, who raised him, who raised most of the children when the men went away to work. So the artist is very recognized, collector base-wise, and very, very well known. And it's very empowering as a voice for a very prominent male artist to celebrate the responsibility and role of women in this country. This is an artist that needs very little introduction. This monumental bronze work, 3 tons of bronze, is by the artist Brett Murray, who has an extensive CV behind his belt. The work is a monumental version of a smaller work that is sold out, and it's called The Fundamentalists. Brett's work is often satirical and deals with politics both at home and abroad. And the artist has been in various different exhibitions, including the Venice Biennale, local collections, international collections, really a seminal artist at this gallery.
Who is the artist that we are seeing here then?
This is Spielman Mkhangu, the late Spielman Mkhangu. He is an artist who studied under the legendary Cecil Scottness, and this is one of the only 2 or 3 monumental works the artist ever made.
So this artist that we are seeing here, can you tell me more about this piece?
Certainly. This is Dylan Lewis, one of the senior artists of the gallery. And this monumental work is part of what was known as the transformative series. So the artist is very well known for his large monumental animal sculptures and figurative.
We got even more sculpture here in the back side of the garden.
We certainly do, yes. This is a stunning example by one of our senior artists, Angus Taylor, who was the most recent recipient of the Helgard Stein Award, which is the most financially sort of impressive award in the country.
So Emma, you got more fantastic pieces here. Who's the one that we are looking at here then?
So this is a multimedia-based artist, Lisa Grobler, and this body of work is based on several residencies that the artist did last year. She traveled to New York, India, and up to the northern Karoo area. And this is a beautiful example of how Lisa incorporates sculpture, painting, and different kinds of crafts into her languages.
So Emma, you got a really fantastic gallery here with lots of nice, interesting artists, I must say. And I understand that the developing of South African or African artists are really booming. If you look ahead a bit, how do you think that the progress of change or development will be?
African artists exist not only in a plane of being African and having an African dysphoria, but also a critically universal one. And increasingly you see artists that are from South Africa or Africa being represented internationally, and it becomes less about the Africanness of their work and more about the critical, unique contribution they make globally. So I would imagine that as time goes on, it's going to be more and more about the caliber of artists that leave this country and explore international waters. Then it'll be about the fact that they're simply African.
So Emma, if you were to give an advice to a young person that wants to be a curator or a gallerist like yourself, what would you say?
I would say don't be afraid to work from the ground up, get your hands dirty and learn everything there is to know about the organization.